Welcome to the Hope for Parents with Struggling Teens podcast. I'm Brandon Jaffe. Join us as we explore relationship and mental health issues by weeding out the trends in the mental health industry to uncover what truly works in improving our emotional well-being and relationships. At Inspired Resolutions Counseling, we specialize in providing interventions and resources for families with teens, focusing on topics such as teen mental health, parenting challenges, and family dynamics. Welcome back to Hope for Parents with Struggling Teens. Today, I'm going to talk about some kind of real-life parenting struggles that I think a lot of parents can identify with, the exact situation. And I know that parenting can feel like one big emotional roller coaster. And hopefully after today, you find some ways to get a little bit of peace and maybe get off that roller coaster for a bit. Some of you have had that moment where you're working on yourself and maybe going to the group that I run or going to another group or working with another therapist, and you've gotten yourself to that place where you talk calmly to your child in parenting, and you go in, you feel good about how you're responding, then all of a sudden you find that it's turned into an argument. And even though you stay cool, once you realize it's going down the wrong direction, your child insists that you're angry. And the more you try to stay cool, it's almost like the more they push. And before you know it, you're feeling drained. You have no clue how things got out of control. And you feel this level of hopelessness because you were trying so hard. And so I want to kind of walk us through why that happens and how to stop it or at least reduce it. Not by controlling your child, but by changing some of your own reactions and your own perspective. We're going to explore how emotional boundaries, behavior patterns, and being detached can completely transform your parenting experience. The example that I'm going to use, I think a lot of people can identify with. Let's start with setting up a scenario. A parent is talking to their child, father talking to their son, you're getting ready for the day, everything seems fine, and your child fixates on a tone. You just said, hey, are you almost ready? And you meant nothing by it, and they kind of just fixate on your tone, your expression. And really, it's just the fact that you're talking to them that they don't like. And they ask you that question, why are you mad? And a lot of you can identify with that, not just with your kids, but in your marriages or your partnerships. And you say, I'm not mad. Get ready. And they say it again, and they kind of really push in and accuse you of bringing an emotional toll to this situation that you didn't. I've had so many parents in this exact situation. And it happens when they feel really good, usually, about the work that they're doing and the shift that they've made with their own anger. And so a lot of times the parents will either try walking away or calmly mitigating the issue. And in this moment, a lot of times when children are in this state, no matter what, nothing works. The conversation feels exhausting. And it's interesting because the more you engage, even if you try really hard, the more exhausted you get because you are invested in trying to get a good response and you were trying so hard. I want us to change our perspective. Like, some kids are really strong-willed. They emotionally react even when there's no need to emotionally react. Navigating your relationship through these reactions is going to be really important. If they're used to getting a big reaction from you, if you used to yell a lot, or one of the ways they get the focus from being on them is to participate in these arguments. If the culture has only recently shifted, you got to understand, one of the ways that they get control is by bringing emotionality to the situation. And if that has been their normal, they are going to do that for quite some time. And in a lot of the cases I'm working with, the parents feel like they've made a change for a long time, but when you compare it to how long the unhealthy patterns were going on, it's minuscule. What's important is that when your child doesn't get that reaction that they're expecting, in other words, they are trying to pull you in emotionally, for whatever reason, it might not even be conscious on their part. In the case of a child, hey, are you getting ready? They've maybe have other stressors on their mind, or maybe they are just frustrated with you and they're starting that fight, not even realizing it. What happens is, and what I teach parents is, do not react 100 times in a row. And then you can pretty much expect that they aren't going to use that tactic for either attention or, sometimes it's for attention. Sometimes it's to take the attention off of them. Sometimes it's a subconscious manipulation because they don't want to take a look at the unhealthy or bad thing that they're doing. There's any number of reasons that we can assess psychologically that they do this. But the fact is, many parents have experienced this. It's a human thing, not just a teen thing. When you feed it, even if you stop, let's say 10 times in a row, and then you feed it and you engage and you get frustrated and they get frustrated and then they have that memory, what happens is you almost reset the counter. But by 100 times in a row, what happens is you've changed the patterns, you've changed the habits in the relationship, and they are not likely to continue to use that behavior in moments that they are trying to control something. And that's what it's all about. Look, it's kind of like with an animal. If an animal is used to getting food over in one spot and the food stops, they're going to go back to that spot for a period of time, but eventually they're going to go look for food elsewhere. And so we want our children looking for food or attention elsewhere. We want them looking for control elsewhere. And we want to remove that feedback and that engagement in any ways that are unhealthy. Okay. And that gets in the way of the ego of the parents sometimes, because we really feel like we need to pounce on every parenting teaching moment and point out every time they're disrespectful. But look, if that worked, then I would be teaching that. It's a consistency thing, right? It's a boundary issue. My boundary is I'm not going to engage in these conversations with you when you kind of snap at me or try to engage me in an argument. I'm not participating. That's the boundary. What happens is you do it for a while and then you're not consistent. And the number one reason parents struggle to stay consistent is exhaustion. I hear that constantly. I want to respond calmly, but I'm too tired. I want to set boundaries, but I'm drained. And I totally get that. But it's kind of chicken or the egg type question, right? Are you physically exhausted? Probably not. Are you emotionally invested and that's leading to exhaustion? Yeah. Okay. And emotional exhaustion can make you physically feel exhausted. But what's interesting is it's the lack of boundaries and the participation in a harsh way and the taking it personally. All of those things are leading to that emotional exhaustion. And so let me put it another way. When you watch your favorite sports team and you are one of those people who is totally invested and you're yelling at the screen and maybe even you put some money down on it and you're just totally immersed, you get exhausted at the end of your team playing. Now, the person who enjoys the sport, wants to be around their friends, likes the competitive nature of the game, but isn't emotionally invested, isn't making themselves a part of the team, right? You didn't go to any practices. You didn't invest any of your time, effort, and energy other than throwing stuff at the TV. But that person who doesn't emotionally involve themselves is not exhausted at the end of the game that they're watching on TV. And so it's interesting because sometimes you got to use your discernment in parenting and just watch situations unfold. Don't participate in the fighting. Stay back. And you're going to be less exhausted. You're not going to like what you see. Don't get me wrong. But shift that mentality from I have to participate in all the parenting to, you know what, I don't always have to invest. Sometimes I can step back because there's nothing I can do anyways. And often I use this analogy of a gorilla in the zoo. And, nobody who's intelligent goes into the cage with a raging gorilla. You stand outside the glass, you can see it, maybe you even get a little fearful, but you're not going to go in and risk your life while the gorilla is going nuts. And so here's the shift that I want you to think about. If you stop engaging in the chaos, your exhaustion will decrease because you're no longer emotionally fighting and invested in battles that you can't possibly win. You can still care about your child, but you don't have to invest in every single reaction and interaction that they try to suck you into. That sometimes is showing them love. That sometimes is the healthy parenting tactic. Being involved isn't always the healthy parenting tactic. Sometimes, and I can remember talking with somebody recently who loved everything I had to say, but they said that they felt family pressure to get involved. That's an interesting concept always. I talk about it often, and it's kind of that pressure to be the perfect parent, even though nobody says they think they can be the perfect parent. It's, I've got to do the right things. I'm supposed to say these things. I'm supposed to get involved. I'm supposed to lay down the law in these moments. And there's all this outside pressure sometimes from family, but they aren't living in your body. They aren't necessarily right. You really want to ask yourself, these people that make me feel this pressure, would I hire them to help me navigate through and undo the hard things going on in my family? And so that stress of, I feel family pressure or friend pressure to engage has got to be let go. Look, you are going to be judged as a parent. Sorry, you're going to be judged as a parent. Don't let your fear of being judged, though, lead you to a place where you're even more exhausted because you don't feel like you can make healthy decisions of stepping away or setting boundaries based on the judgment that you know you're going to experience. Now, sometimes you're not going to actually experience the judgment you think you will, and that's important to navigate. But whether you are or not, it should not dictate your healthy parenting decisions. Look, if you want to improve your family dynamics, you have to be the one that manages your own reactions and decisions for engagement. It can't be your mother's, your father's, your kids, your neighbors. It is your decision, and you are the one that's going to have to live with the aftermath, whether you make a healthy decision or not. That is what's in your control. That brings me to the concept of compartmentalizing, and I often talk about this, taking things personally. In these situations, one of the things that pulls you in is you take it personally. And a lot of parents, they're struggling at work maybe, they're struggling in their marriage. And when you're already emotionally depleted and you're already reaching exhaustion, what happens is you are more likely to feel like things are a personal attack. If you've been attacked at work all day, you're going to come home, and if you aren't aware of yourself, you're going to take things personally. Even though you have your boundaries, you're trying to stay cool, calm, and collected, you're going to get sucked in. I think the reason we take things personally most often is our identity is wrapped up in the success that we have in controlling the issue in front of us, whether that's being at work or as a parent, right? Especially if you have difficult days socially or career-wise, everything has the chance to get on your I take it personally side of you. And so, look, every argument, every criticism, and every failure can be seen as an opportunity to grow, or it can be seen as a hit, a chink out of your identity. I can remember one dad that I was working with recently. He was talking about feeling like, he was failing at work, or things were just really tough at work, and that he'd come home, couldn't get control of his kids, kind of was at odds with his wife. And he was talking about a part of his job that he was taking very personally. And what's interesting is the difficult part of his job that he was taking personally, everybody in his business would say, hey, that's a part of the job. It's kind of like with parenting. Hey, there are some difficult things that are just a part of parenting. And I asked him, if you were teaching a class to people to do the thing that you do, would you teach them that they better not experience this criticism and this difficult day that you had? Or would you teach them to not take it personally and teach them how to recover, move on, and navigate while receiving this criticism or difficult behavior. And he said, well, yeah, it's a part of the job and I get paid well for that to be a part of the job. But I do keep taking it personally, just like I keep taking personally the difficult parts of parenting. That's where detachment comes from and compartmentalization. Number one, we've got to compartmentalize different parts of our lives. Our work cannot come home with us, and our home life cannot come to work with us. We can talk about it, we can remember it, but we've got to detach from it emotionally. And I don't have any special ways to do it. There's so many foo-foo things out there that will tell you these magical ways to detach, but it takes practice. It takes owning it. It takes being aware of it. It takes writing. And, I always tell people, in order to practice, you got to say it out loud. You got to think it. You got to read it. You got to write it. You got to talk about it with people. You've got to make a plan, try to institute that plan, then do it again when you fail. And then repetition is what makes it happen. The caring deeply about the difficult time that you're having with work, with another part of your life, or with your child is good, right? You care. You can't just detach in a psychopathic way, but caring deeply is much different than taking it personally. And when you detach from the emotional weight of every reaction and experience, you end up gaining control over your peace, regardless of what happened to you in a day. And so I encourage you, if you struggle with that, ask for help in learning to do that in your life. I have a challenge for everybody listening. The next time your child tries to engage you in that emotional battle where they're instigating you, remain calm, see if there's a boundary to follow through with, and disengage. I don't know how you're going to disengage. It might mean disengaging by saying, hey, can I think about it? It might be, hey, you know what? I want to come back to this. It might be that you got to run away because they are so defiant and so insistent. I don't know. But find a way to disengage. And every time you do that in a healthy way, you plant a seed. And if you do it consistently, the chaos will decrease. Your child might not change, but the chaos will not be fed and the storms won't come out as often. My challenge is that you think right now of a consistent situation in which you can practice not feeding it, not engaging in it, and not playing that emotional battle, and see how many times you can get to. I want you to get to 100. Start off with 10. Try to do it 10 times in a row first, then see if you can do it another 10. As I close here, you don't have control over a lot of the things that involve parenting. As we all know, you only control yourself. And so really think about your own emotional regulation and what boundaries can you start working on setting. Staying calm, okay? Not escalating, not engaging in the chaos. And then really think about how you're going to break the cycle of whatever chaos patterns are going on in your family at home. Remember, your child seeks familiar reactions, even if they don't like it. See what you can kind of shake up and do differently starting today. And then get help for emotionally detaching from the difficult things going on. Address some of the external stressors going on at work, with family, with friends, etc., and try to compartmentalize those things into different parts of your life rather than everything bleeding together. You've got to compartmentalize, and you can't take things personally. You can feel deeply. You can recognize that things are emotionally a big deal, but taking it personally means that you're taking it into your identity, or you're reacting in a way where you're protecting your identity. And that doesn't go well. That doesn't help your family or yourself. And don't fantasize about the perfect situation. A lot of times you engage because you know how things should be going and it's not going that way. And then again, you take that personally. And really, those unrealistic expectations that are based on your fantasy, not based on what is and what reality has been, are one of the things that will suck you in. And so let go of those. It disrupts the pace. And remember to accept what is, not what should be. And that might be the first step into you finding some emotional relief. I hope that's helpful, and I'm excited to have our next podcast and take it in another direction. We would love to hear from you. You're welcome to email us with topics and things that you would like to hear. Thanks a lot.
The Hope for Parents with Struggling Teens podcast is an Inspired Resolutions production. Hosted by Brandon Jaffe. Edited and mixed by Natalie Atkinson. Music by Natalie and Sean Atkinson. Inspired Resolutions Counseling is based in Yorba Linda, California. Whether you're interested in joining our group, seeking therapy services, or exploring more of our resources, you can find us on our website, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube at Inspired Resolutions Counseling.